I am fully conscious and wearing pants, which I think is good. But,
That's excellent.
So,
I just started recording, and that will be the first thing people hear. Excellent.
well, no, it's good to know. It's good to let people
Yes.
know. It definitely doesn't raise other questions or sound at all suspicious.
Oh, okay. Well, um, this is the release day chat for my novel, Ironsworn, The Unspoken Vow. It is available on itch.io. Um, and I created the novel using the Oracle bot, which Xeno and rsek created together. And it was really an amazing experience to write using this tool. And I've really never had a chance to do something like that before, though I have wanted to for years. I thought about writing a book using a tarot deck a few years back. So I wanted to ask the two of you about just some general questions about the Oracle bot, how it was made, how you got into the community, etc. Um, would either of you like to do a quick introduction?
I'll defer to Xeno on that since it was their project first.
so it was oh gosh, I don't even remember their name, but a long time ago there was
Rabania?
a year ago there was a different Discord bot, and it was pretty good, and I used it a lot for some group games and for a couple solo games I played. And then when Starforged like kind of started getting spoiled, I was like, I think I can add this to the bot. And this was like before Starforged ever even really took off. I started importing whatever little snippets we got from Sean into that bot, which was written in JavaScript. And I'm professionally a computer programmer, but I have never really used JavaScript, and it just started frustrating me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the programmer thing and write it from the ground up in a language I'm way more comfortable in. And then when I started doing that, I was like, well, I got this whole framework. I can start putting all these features in. And I think I spoiled a couple on the Discord for, I don't know, things like progress trackers and things like little features that I was like, I'm going to really take my time and make this the bot I would want to use. But it ended up being a lot of work getting data from the source books in, and that's where rsek really just saves my butt every single time, because they're now have this project that almost I think everybody uses that just gives you all the data you need, and it's great. So
Yeah, it definitely seems to be it seems to be the one and only that I've seen.
Seen
So,
other smaller bot projects, and I think there's still a couple of diehards around who either don't know or just don't see a reason to switch from the OG bot. But
and
yeah, it's certainly the main one, I guess, at this point.
yeah.
well, the other one is now defunct. I think you'd have to host it yourself.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Oh wow. So, oh,
Nobody knows who was hosting it because it wasn't the author. So there's just some random person hosting the bot.
Live from an undisclosed location at a black site. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
so it's written in. I've heard it called two different things: C hash or C sharp.
C sharp is the official name, but yeah, it's written in C sharp using a framework called Discord.net, which provides a lot of access into the Discord system. Um, it makes writing it actually pretty easy to add new things and use Discord in all the ways that Discord can be. I feel like, though, I started this project both at the exact right time, because there's a lot of new interest in Ironsworn and Starforged because of Starforged.
Yeah.
But also, all these new Discord features just came out in the last 6 months to a year, and I'm like, I want to use all these. So now, right now, I'm working on a complete rewrite, and it's been going slow, but I'm picking it up right now. So.
Oh, wow. Well, that sounds cool. You want to tell us more about the new rewrite?
Yeah, so with lots of poking from rsek, it's going to use all of the slash command features that Discord added, and there's a lot of new button features that bots get. So instead of having reactions to do little things, there'll be buttons that are a lot more stylizable, and
it won't have to be a airplane for momentum anymore.
Yeah. And I tell everybody,
it was really funny.
I tell everyone, give me something better that's in the standard emoji set. Recently,
I think the cyclone symbol is the solid bet for that. It's, you know, a little more abstract, but maybe breaks immersion a little less for Ironsworn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what else to make it, and
Yeah,
at the time I was really trying to stay away from using custom emojis. We've since broken that with the new progress tracker emojis and reaction.
Yeah, it just
So
seemed to
maybe
work
we do
well.
something more like that again.
Yeah, my hope is to get some official icons from Starforged itself to cover certain aspects there. And, you know, I keep an eye on that anyway, since I'm involved on the official side with Dataforged and Roll20. But that's something I'm pushing for. Who knows if it'll actually happen. Nathan Gray, the guy doing the icons for Starforged, certainly has a lot of other stuff to worry about as well. So, sure is a lot of icons in this game.
So, the Starforged side of it is going to be a lot more complicated.
Starforged is a more complicated game in a lot of ways, if only just because of the amount of volume, and there's a lot more structure, I would say, to the tables. That sort of is like, it's like you could put it in, like right now we have it pretty much as is for a number of tables without any special features to like manage factions or anything like that, because that's new. But like that level of where it's something structured and can be conceived as like an object, I guess, is at that point you kind of start wanting stuff like the fancy embeds we have for NPCs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine how complicated all of that must be. I don't know anything about coding. I tried to take a Python for Beginners class in college to get my minor in astronomy, because I needed 1 more hour to get my minor in astronomy. I'm like, well, Python's the only class that's a 1 hour credit, and I get in there and they're like, yeah, we're assuming that you know C+ and C#, and I'm like, I know nothing. So all of this is so absolutely foreign to me, but it's really cool.
And I feel like a lot of the problems that I end up solving are trying to figure out how to get Discord, which is a platform for chatting with friends, to work as a way to use a bot to play a tabletop RPG game. But it also works really well for Ironsworn in particular, because in a way, it's a journal text log of things. So for people who are playing solo, I think I'm really fortunate to be developing this thing for people to use that that works so well wherever they go, whatever platform they're on, and can deliver something really consistent. And it really lowers the entry level on getting something going for your game.
Yes,
Which,
for sure.
yeah, because a lot of times I'm like, I should have just made this a website. I should have like, I don't know why I picked Discord as my platform, because it's a lot of work, but I think it's good for the community. But there's a lot of stuff in there that even when we play, because I have a group that I run, and sometimes we'll play on Roll20 for just regular Ironsworn, and I still use the bot because for me it's faster to say, show me this reference table, than it is to go look it up in the rules. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely use it to generate NPCs quickly while playing on Roll20 with friends as well.
Same.
Because it's...
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Huh? Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, and if I see Infantry, that's just my default state.
Yeah, I have to say that probably the thing that I was like the most yes, thank you for was just giving me random gender presentation and identity. So I'm like, oh, this new character, what pronouns, what do I want to do? Quick, give me something.
And it's funny because that might be, well, not the most controversial feature, but that is one of the features that that's not an official table. That was carried over from the old bot, and they were just there. And I think they're in Ironsworn's, or Data Forge, Data Sworn. I can't remember your project's rsek. I'm sorry. I always confuse the two of them, but I think that's in there now, even though I don't think it's an official table.
I think I've excised everything that isn't official stuff, just to like keep it to what it says on the tin, if that makes sense. But like if I added fan or community content, I would probably do that as a separate repo, just to keep stuff like nice and compartmentalized, depending on what people want to use.
I can't imagine playing without that.
That's
so useful.
That's one of my favorite tables too. Sometimes I'm a little like, that's not the character I wanted, but then it's like, you re-roll it and that's what you do. So I do it for everything.
Yeah. I have to say, one of my favorite moments. So the first in the series, Unspoken Vow, finished out. You can go download it now. The second book and the third book both have rough drafts. Or the third book is a rough draft. The second book is kind of like a first draft. It doesn't matter. But in the second book, I just needed pronouns for a random barkeep. And I rolled Drag King. And I was like, that's an option? And what was going to be just an absolutely random nothing character became one of my favorite characters in the game. Like, just sitting there being like, what would a Iron Age drag king look like? Like, where does that come in with the story, the personality, all of that? And it was amazing. Made for a very wonderful time.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, because there is like, that notion of gender, kind of, it's pithy, but maybe a little reductive to say that all gender is drag. But it is, I think that the heart of that is that it's all, there's the interior part, but there's also the performance.
Yes.
But, and people performing a different gender identity than they are in other aspects of their life, or just, switching back and forth, or it's been a thing for a long time, like probably as long as people have been around. And like, even look at the Vikings, which are often characterized as being, hella mask, but like there was often this notion of sort of magic and trickery as a kind of woman's magic, but there was also men who did this who had sort of an ambivalent at best relationship with people who men who didn't use magic. So I think there's actually like as much as fantasy shouldn't feel restricted by history, there's a lot of like the most interesting bits of history are the ones that don't really come up in pop culture a lot of the time.
Yes. Well, and also just sort of this erasure of history.
Yeah.
And yeah, that idea of gender presentation with that was one of the things I really had to stop and think about with this character is that sometimes she is a she, sometimes he is a he, and has two names. My character is what was her name? Papon. And then Papon has a character of Orion. So it's sort of this layer of Papon is an actor for
Yeah.
the entertainment of her patrons. And it just, being able to make that character have a motivation to be someone else just was really interesting to me.
Well, it's pretty meta as well because ultimately in solo play you're playing every character, so you're a character playing a character.
Yes. Of course, at that point, I definitely knew that I was that I was writing this to make a book. So, yeah. So
I want to ask, because all I know is that you wrote a book based on an Ironsworn game. So I will play that trope that you get where you have the person who asks all the questions that the audience should know.
Okay.
Did you play solo or did you play with a group? And how did you kind of get started in playing, I'm curious, with A, the Oracle bot, and B, solo play, and when did you decide that you wanted to turn it into a book?
So I think that going one step further in the past is going to help this story because I've been a writer for a very long time. Writing has been a hobby and a somewhat of a goal towards career. I've published before. So coming into this from that perspective is sort of what took this in that direction after a while. I got into role-playing with my fiance and my best friend and my sister, and we're all, we're a forever group. But things got really rough in the middle of the pandemic for all of us, and we went like 2 months, 3 months maybe, without playing, and I was just getting that itch that I need to play something. So Matt told me that there is a solo RPG called Ironsworn, and I wanted to try it out, and we were already playing our Mouse Guard. No, not Mouse Guard. It's Stone Top. We were playing Stone Top on Discord. And so he just was like, hey, there's a Ironsworn bot for Discord. Here, download it for you. Play. And so I started with that and just coming at it as a writer and being like, okay, well, I know how to build a character. I know how to build a world. I know, and I have a lot of experience with just naturally taking plot lines to a usual rise and fall of drama. And I played for the entire first adventure, which is the Unspoken Vow. And then I started going into what will become the second book, and that's very quickly I looked back at Unspoken Vow and went, that is a perfect 3-act story. So I decided to give it a try. My initial thought was I will quickly turn it into a book, do very little to it, edit, clean it up a little, whatever, and see if anybody wants it. Just put it out there for if anybody wants it. And then the more I worked on it, the more it became, oh, this is good. This is going to be a thing. I'm definitely going to publish this. So that's sort of how it came to be. And it was difficult because I was learning Ironsworn as I was initially playing it. And I was worried, I'm still worried, that people are going to read it and that I'm going to be hit by some rules lawyers or something.
That's what I have rsek for, because I write these things and then she's like, this is wrong, and I'm like, oh, I believe you, but for my own edification, can you tell me where in the I think my most common thing I send to her is, what page number? Now I need to know. I gotta make this right. Like, for the longest time, the bot allowed people to roll like 14s because you have a high enough mod and you roll really well, and but now I didn't know that there's like this one line in the rules text that says you can't roll higher than a 10.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because it's like, it's on page 6, so I guess the intuition there is, how are you going to miss it? But on the other hand, it's sort of easy to miss something on page 6 because you read it the first time, miss it, and then say, oh, no, I already read I already know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, apparently a lot of people, but myself included, miss the one line that says when you take harm and you roll endure harm, you can get back initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that for a long time, and I was getting my ass kicked. And I was like, oh, this is just like, I like to play Darkest Dungeon. I just picked a Darkest Dungeon style solo RPG, and then I saw that in the book, and I was like, another one is I always forget to roll Turn the Tide. So I'll have these battles where I just get my ass handed to me, and I'll run away and then look at it and go, I never turned the tide.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to. It may not be possible until Discord adds another few more kinds of widgets, but it'd be good to have like a combat tracker of some kind where it's like, this is the things you have available to use. Your initiative state is this, and these moves are available right now, right?
Yes, I do like the Oracle's current initiative tracker. It is really useful for me.
Yeah, that was one of the little things I just threw in there, and I was like, maybe someone will use this. Use it all the time.
I actually never mind, spoilers. I'm not going to talk about that. A lot of people don't care about spoilers, but just in case someone does, I am not going to talk about how that is very useful for me. But yeah, rsek, you told me you have a particular philosophy on data structuring.
Yeah, and philosophy might be overselling it a bit. Actually, the formal education I do have is actually in fine arts and graphic design. I'm kind of fucking guessing a lot of the time, and to an extent, I just view it because that's how I was trained to look at things. But I kind of view it as an exercise in interface design, and to a certain extent, use your user experience and user interface is about guiding people towards desired behavior. And that's not the only thing, but often you're wanting to guide people towards interacting in the most fruitful ways with whatever it is you're putting in front of them, right?
Yeah.
So so aside from just like making sure that stuff is consistent with the book where possible, which is still a work in progress, but being precise about terminology and things like that, and not inventing new terms if I can possibly get away with it.
Which,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, which is one of the things, Margot, you and I talked about, or that was that we switched on the bot from strong hit with I don't even remember what the old term was, but it was
opportunities, complications, and then that went to strong hit with a match and miss with a match.
And that was done because of that's what's in the book. We made up the old complication and opportunity words. Mm-hmm. Those were just things that got made up and kind of stayed in for a long time, and that's when we switched them. Sorry to interrupt, rsek. That was just an example of that philosophy in action.
That I kind of suspect that terminology was inherited from the Roll20 sheet, but I may be mistaken. And the thing is, like, calling them an opportunity and a complication isn't an incorrect description of what's going on. And I think most people kind of get what's going on there. And there are even terms used in the description of what, a miss plus a match and a strong hit plus a match are. But there is a name for that. It's strong hit plus a match.
Yeah.
And if you want to look it up in the index to understand what that's all about, you're going to run into trouble if you go looking for opportunity or complication. Especially in Ironsworn, or in Starforged, rather, where opportunity is sort of like a specific category of table,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, and in Delve.
Yeah.
Which I did run into a little bit, because I use opportunity and complications in the first 3 books. I don't think I switched to the new one because I didn't know. I was just going along. Like, these 3 books came out so fast. And so, yeah, I use those terms, and I actually also make up some of my own. Not because I'm trying to avoid any sort of copyright stuff, because none of this, no specific term in Ironsworn is actually copyrighted. But I wanted to make it more available to people who don't play Ironsworn or people who don't play tabletop games at all. So I did end up taking out a lot of the dice terminology. And if you don't mind, I'd like to show something
Yeah, and I reckon in that context, it makes more sense. Like, if you're aiming for one that's less familiar with the game or less familiar with the medium in general, then, yeah, calling them complications or opportunities makes perfect sense. Because that's, again, it's a perfectly fine plain language description of what they generally do. But you can't look it up in the index.
Yes. And see, that's one of the things is I don't know if anybody's going to actually want to... Or was it? If anybody's actually going to want to know more details about the rules, I just figure if they did, they would go search it out themselves.
Yeah, totally.
I have no idea what page this is on. Here we go. So, this is one of the things that I added in there to help people along. It's one of the ways that I wrote the story was to sort of integrate the what the Oracle bot was, the information the Oracle bot was giving, integrate it into the story in a way that you learn how the Oracle is influencing the narrative, but you learn it slowly so you don't feel like you get an information dump and your brain hurts. Mm-hmm. So, fairly far in, I just gave people a example of what does an opportunity mean, and show, it's a match, strong hit, it's not a match, and all of that. And then, just because it's fun, I like to give a little bit of okay, my brain will just stop.
Flavor text.
Foreshadowing.
Oh.
Yes. This is foreshadowing. I believe the next chapter is chapter 3. Yes. So I just realized if the two of you didn't have Twitch pulled up, then
Yeah, I
I
don't.
would not have been able to see that.
I put actually I'm good. I don't.
No.
I can't figure out how to get the iPad to give me a view of like myself. So there's just maximal texting grandma, like talking to grandma on Zoom energy. Like I'm blissfully unaware of how the camera looks on me right now. But yeah, I don't think I could have the Twitch stream open at the same time. I would look at it then, and I don't think that would be good.
Yeah. Well, basically, it's just showing an example of what the dice look like. Well, dice, what it looks like in the text when the oracle gives you some information, and that just very basically an opportunity, awesome. Strong hit, pretty darn good. All the way down to complication being like, oh, this is bad. And then being like, turn the tide, very bad if you get a miss and match on that. Or miss at all on that. Aw, Ray said hi. Hi, Ray. One of my friends is in chat. I'm very glad. Actually, a few of my friends are in chat. I saw Shalini is here too. All right. I have a few other just conversation type questions. So, Xeno, you said that you're a computer programmer just for your job. So is coding the Oracle bot, is that sort of a creative outlet for you? Is it combining two of your...
It's in a way, it's like a labor of love, because I make it and get to use it, and I give it out, and other people use it, and I sometimes creep on the logs that just like fly by when I have the Oracle server open on my computer, and I'm just like, people do the coolest stuff with this little thing I create, so it just kind of inspires me to do more. And also I work as a lot of programmers do on we always complain about the code bases we work on at work. So during pandemic, I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna start my own project, do it my own way, and then I'll have less to complain about. It'll be somewhere where I can do all the fun stuff that's like new and shiny that I don't get to do at work that I want to be able to do. And having the Ironsworn and Starforged community behind me, and people being really excited about stuff is just it's really wonderful, and that's kind of the reason I do it, is that I get to use it for myself and my friends, and then other people use it and love it. So, and then I get to do cool stuff like this, like come on and talk about someone who wrote a book using something that I wrote, maybe that I never intended to give out to anyone else, that kind of evolved into something that a lot of people use now. And
You're influencing a lot of people and a lot of people's creativity. You are, both of you have created all of these tools that really give people a jumping off point for their creativity, because I think a lot of people run into an issue of choice paralysis. I know that that's part of why these books, I was able to write them so quickly, was because being able to narrow things down from all of the really good choices to all of the middling choices, all of the bad choices, give me one, and then I can pick from that tree of choices. And I've talked to a few people, and they're like, yes, absolutely, this is why having a dice roller makes all the difference. And of course, then you've also got all of the other random generators that keep the flow going.
Which which they're really just leveraging the Ironsworn system of it being a wonderful system for generating content that is story driven and interesting. I guess it's
Absolutely.
really the Powered by Apocalypse system that
Mm-hmm.
make sure everything's story driven and make sure everything is, I don't know, interesting, and being able to generate all this stuff on the fly, yeah, is really good. The bot, I think, just helps do it a little quicker and a little, you don't have to remember that you need to roll. These are the options for an NPC table.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
reducing friction in the user interface of Ironsworn itself, I guess.
Yes.
Could be a way of putting it.
Because having to just flip through pages, I when I write, I have so many tabs open for different rule pages, and just being able to, quickly, everything the bot gives me to just quickly keep the momentum going, because I do get bogged down in simple things like, oh, if I make this character just another generic man, what does that mean about me? Like, well, we kind of have these defaults in our mind. So it is, and it's nice to have some of that responsibility taken off of me, because sometimes just randomly rolling a name, I can be like, not my fault. I can blame that on the Oracle.
Yeah, it helps. That kind of stuff is where I've always, as a DM, as a player, I've always struggled with filling out my world. Like, I have an idea of where I want to go, but I also have this pretty strong philosophy of, like, always let the players drive whatever they want to do. I don't lead. I try not to railroad at all. And so a lot of times I'll be like, you just throw stuff in that you don't really know anything about, and you're like, well, now they want a name, and I'm terrible at making up names. So yeah, having these things are these tools that the whole community make, like the Roll20 sheet is incredible to me still. I don't know what I'm going to do when the Starforge Roll20 sheet comes out, because the bot development might go way down.
Yeah.
Probably, but
well, it's saying it's there now. Like you can use it. It just hasn't gotten I would say it's still in a beta state, and maybe so because Starforge isn't finished yet.
Yeah.
Probably won't be till end of first quarter next year at least. But
we'll see, because I don't particularly like the Roll20 platform itself, but I think that character sheet is that it's all so incredible to me, and I'm just in awe of the old sheet. I wish the bot worked that way.
I mean,
yeah,
I've been working on works well.
Yeah, and it's for being, and that's one of the things. It's like, I never thought I was going to build a character sheet into it, because it's Discord. How am I going to track everything that needs to happen? It's going to be too complex. It was kind of like my mental block on it. And then enough people just kind of bugged me, and I was like, I can prototype something that'll just, like, get you by 90% of the way, and turns out that's enough for most people. And then we get, I don't know, once you start getting, I started figuring out Discord a little bit more, and like the reply feature really helped a lot, because now you can attach images to whatever post you want, and it kind of makes sense in the context of Discord as the platform. So it really actually, I think, helps fill out and maybe increase immersion. So it's as I've learned, I think I'm getting more and more comfortable with Discord. And it's so good for people who are on the go, because my Roll20 is atrocious on mobile.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know I don't play on mobile almost ever, but I try and design, or Discord is very good at limiting the bot to being mostly mobile friendly. There's a couple weird little bugs that,
Yeah.
and Android versus iOS versus Mac versus Linux versus Windows, where things kind of get a little wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah, and God help you if you want consistent emoji rendering. Like, I'm pretty sure that's 25% of the discussion we have on the Discord server for the bot.
What emoji? What does this look like? And then rsek will send me a picture of what it looks like on iOS, and then I'll send her a picture of what it looks like on Android. And yeah, it's funny how much a little bit of difference in the system, like, because I will design it for desktop platform Discord, because that's I'm already coding, I'm already working on a desktop, so that's where it's most accessible to me. And then we'll go look at it on mobile, and things will be all weird. Like, I don't, if you've ever looked at like a progress tracker on mobile, the boxes are all huge, and that's I'm gonna say it's a Discord bug, but
I'm gonna go look at it now.
I think we have it fixed.
You have it fixed?
Sort of. It's a little hacky on the back end, because there's like invisible characters in there that Discord might or might not patch out at any time.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
I think it's still. I think I haven't fixed the challenge. The challenge ones will show you what I'm talking about.
Oh,
yeah. Countdown boxes, yeah.
Yeah, the countdown boxes are all huge.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of experience with the challenge, because first time I did a challenge, my character almost died, and I'm like, what the fuck? I never want to do this again. Oh, I mean, at this point, 3 books in, I'm like, what am I gonna do if my character dies? So, yeah,
Swear a new vow.
Yes, I do like how much this game lends itself to Discord, because, like you said, being able to do it from anywhere. There was a time where I had to stop writing because I had a doctor's appointment. I drove over there, and of course they make you come early. So I continued writing on my phone, which is not something I could do before, because I use Word documents, and just being able to be like, I've got these ideas that need to get down. It was a lot of fun. So, it's good shit. You were talking about the, I don't Ironsworn community and lots of different people building tools. I took a look at it for a little while because, again, like, most of this is... But it seemed like everyone was working on a different tool, that there's not a whole lot of overlap, which to me is like, you guys are so organized. What are your thoughts on that?
rsek, I'll let you field this one because I feel like you're a little more in the tool community than I am.
Yeah, I guess I got my fingers in a lot of pies. But like at this point, aside from doing Data Forged, which is mostly solo, but people have kindly contributed their bug fixes as pull requests if they notice errors. But and I do some contributions to the bot, but lately most of my time for that has been mostly consumed with working on the World 28. But because whatever weirdness and idiosyncrasies Discord has, it is significantly easier to deal with than Roll20. But, which I think is, and it really is fucking incredible how the work that Ethan has done with like making this beautiful character sheet on their like work. Mm-hmm. But and there's some wild shit happening there behind the scenes just to like do regular stuff, like a button that you click and it takes you to another page. But which Roll20 is gradually rolling out features to make easier, but it's could be better. But yeah.
I wonder how Ethan feels about Ethan's the developer for the Roll20 sheets. I wonder how he feels about Roll20 as a platform. I wonder, he's probably similar to me as Discord as a platform of, why did I pick this platform? But you love it.
Would it be that way for any platform, though?
Yeah, probably.
You just pick a hard thing to do.
And having a platform is really good because you get a lot of it breaks down the barriers of entry of, I have to know about this website, I have to figure out how to use this website, and then I have to convince all my friends to use it. When you already have, groups already know about Roll20, groups already have Discord servers, so inviting a bot or creating a game in Roll20 helps the authors of these tools bring people to their platform, mm-hmm. and gets people playing Ironsworn. Mm-hmm. How does the rest of the community kind of interact? rsek, I know like you and we have a pretty good rapport because we talk almost like every day. A little less lately, but
yeah. I don't know, like, actually, come to think of it, I should bug Sean Tompkin about getting a channel just for, like, Data Forged updates or something like that. But, so to make it easier for people to follow. But,
I want a channel.
But, I mainly interact with its people like, hey, I'm having X problem with Data Forge, and then that's generally a conversation that goes like, oh, I'll fix that, or no, I won't fix that. Here's why. I've designed it in a different way. Or, oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, that's not well documented. Here's how to do it. But beside that, I think part of it is just like the ease. Organizing groups of people is difficult. It increases in difficulty by orders of magnitude for every person you add. And then there's so many just like various libraries and frameworks out there that, if you know where to get a framework or library that does the thing you want, it's much more manageable to write a solo project. Right? Just because, like, you have Discord.net didn't exist, there'd be a lot of... We would have to invent it, I suppose.
Well, we would be writing the bot in JavaScript still, because...
Yeah.
And not that the JavaScript libraries are really good, it's just they're not. I don't know. It makes the code so disorganized because
Yeah.
JavaScript is those bots are great for little tiny things, but once you start getting into the complexity of having planets for Starforge, Delve for Ironsworn, all these little things, as they start adding up and making it really hard to figure out where things are happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can alleviate that a bit with like grafting some TypeScript script onto it, or using things like JavaScript classes, which are almost just function wrappers. But yeah, like it's the structure certainly isn't there on its own, and it's harder to be disciplined, I think, in JavaScript, just because it doesn't really force you to do a lot, like check types on the input and things like that. So you might get something weird, and then it doesn't know what to do. But
I'm not very familiar with JavaScript, but it does, like, it seems like a scary language. Like, it's hard to work with.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind it so much, but I kind of got, the very minimal, extremely minimal coding experience I had was just back during the GeoCities and Tripod era, where you could, dump a bunch of JavaScript on your page and do an obnoxious color change as the page was loading. And I think part of it is just like inertia, because I got like most of the programming that I've been doing over the past couple of years really got started when I started using this website called Perchance to build generators.
Forgot about Perchance.
Yeah, and it's Perchance's syntax isn't really JavaScript syntax except in certain parts, but there's enough in there that you can actually pretty much do like regular ass JavaScript in there if you want, and it kind of makes for like a fairly smooth learning curve into understanding some of what JavaScript does. So, me working in that is sort of inertia, I suppose.
But so the overall for the community, I would say we are actually honestly pretty disorganized. I think we just have this respect rapport where we try not to like step on each other's toes, and we're all excited about each other's projects all the time.
That's really sweet. I like that.
The one thing about the disorganization that just like stresses me out sometimes is just like sometimes I'll find into people's like, wow, I wish I knew about DataForge before I did all the data entry myself, which just
as someone who has undertaken a lot of that data entry,
I suffered, so you don't have to, so that nobody has to do this again.
So for yours, is it now mostly automated?
DataForge?
Yeah.
A lot of the time, like, it's not, like, most of the changes that have come recently have been such that automating them is more trouble than just doing the data entry by hand. But, there is a significant amount of automation just, like, internally. I stored as a bunch of YAML files, just because that's easy for me to read at a glance. And, the JSON should be human readable to a degree, just so that people can understand what the hell is going on in there. But like, the YAML is really human readable, which I like. And then I keep those all in separate files, and then I have a haphazard array of scripts which do a bunch of conversions into JSON, and then just different varieties of JSON where it's array-based or key-based. So yeah, a lot of it is I end up updating it by hand most of the time, and by hand that just means like copy pasting and then doing a regular expression of some kind to get the table in the right shape, and then running a script to update it, and then noticing 2 weeks later that I made some sort of error, but when somebody's thing breaks, but.
I'm so lost.
sorry to all our viewers about.
I'm betting there's a lot of people in here that are, programmers and code for fun and are like, yes, I finally get to hear what this is about. Hopefully there's one or two people in here that like reading books.
I think there's a few.
We have 10 viewers.
Yeah. But it's sort of funny because I just like got started with handling JavaScript in more depth, via using perchance to make generators, and then to make generators that were fancier looking than other people's generators, because it makes me upset when stuff does not look nice. I don't hold it against other people. This is sort of a pathology I have to deal with myself. But I do feel better when I make the button look nice and the transitions look nice. And
that new dice roller that the bot is using, thanks to you, is so beautiful. I love it every time I see it.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased with how that turned out. And it was relatively simple to do. And yeah, and I guess in a lot of ways, like, I think I've commented to Xeno before that in a lot of ways, working on the Discord bot is user interface design, but with a very narrow subset of pieces, and you kind of have to make the best, which is kind of nice in a way. Like there's maybe two ways to solve a problem instead of like a theoretically infinite one. Sorry, hold on. Turn off the reminder on my phone. But yeah, it's like having that restricted. Like I guess I could use it's like having a restricted palette when making a painting. It sort of forces you to understand like the weird little nuances of each individual component. And, there's a lot of weird little nuances to the components that Discord has added, like proper buttons with advanced features like having text on them.
We got a really interesting comment, couple of comments here. Your username is a little hard to pronounce. Samquid Flux. He's talking about that they are working with an artist to turn a play report into comic format, and
Nice.
are working on a deck of many fortunes, which is going to be the Ironsworn equivalent of Deck of Many Things. And they took interest in the novel because they want to do something similar. So I thought I'd just read that out for posterity. It's really, really cool, the kind of creative things that Ironsworn gets people into. Sorry to derail a little bit there.
Well, it's definitely like given me like some more motivation to like I kind of like burnt out and then dropped out of design school, and then like just didn't draw for like a year.
Oh,
But
jeez.
and yeah, like drawing like sketches where it's no big deal. Nobody's really gonna see it or necessarily care about it because it's just a sketch I've done with my stylus on my phone while playing Ironsworn, or a bunch of prose that I've hacked together in Scrivener or something like that. Has been a tremendous outlet, really, and gives me and provides an interesting balance to the code aspect, because I kind of think that whole right brain left brain thing is kind of bullshit, and like
Pretty
what
sure
you're not
science thinks so too.
and it's there is I reckon they're like two hands. Ideally you're using both, otherwise you're probably more likely to drop stuff if it's heavy. Yes, that metaphor kind of got away from me. But having ways to engage different kinds of creative thinking has been good, I think, and
Yes.
having a project, and it's gotten me work that people pay me money for, which is kind of fucked up if you think about it. But,
What do you mean?
but it's I don't know, it's sort of surreal. Like I mostly just set out to like make weird little prose random generators that were to amuse myself with. I think the most to show that I got out of an early one was like I submitted it for an English assignment, and my prof thought it was cool. but but and was sort of just doing those just because it was something to do and it was fun. And I find procedural generation really interesting because it sort of forces me to dissect something and see what the working parts are so that I can instruct a computer, because computers are dumb as hell, in how to assemble something with the same energy, right? Which is often it's using quantitative tools to fix qualitative problems, I guess, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so I got started with that, and a year or two down the road, I'm managing a repo of JSON data for a game, and contributing to various I guess apps is probably the word, is probably the broad header that the bot and the Roll20 sheet fall under, even if they're not apps themselves. It's their app like interfaces, and the line sort of gets blurry. But so it's sort of weird thinking about that sometimes. I certainly didn't anticipate that when I was like, well, I kind of like this generator I did. Seems okay. Maybe I'll join the Discord and just like put it out there, see if other people get something out of it too. Mm-hmm. And they did, so which is, it seems like a pretty good value add if it's improving people's play experiences. And at the end of the day, it's making games, making it easier for people to play their weird elf games, right? But it is cool to like give something like people an activity for people to relax and socialize around and spend time with their loved ones or make new friends online or in person, right? And especially in a pandemic world where doing a bunch of data entry is sort of a I'm just going to do this so I don't have to think about the state of the world. But then that actually being useful instead of just me, tearing a napkin into tiny pieces is has been helpful. And I'm glad, other people getting something out of it is kind of gravy to me, but it, maybe gravy's the best part sometimes.
Well, I know I really appreciate all the work that both of you have done. We've been chatting for an hour, but I'm in no rush. I was wondering if the two of you would be interested in hearing a little bit about how the Oracle has become a bit of a character.
You kind of mentioned it, and so I wanted to ask, and I'm glad you're going to segue there for us.
I was thinking it's somewhat interesting. I feel like most people know this, but for anyone who might not be familiar, in writing there are technically 4 voices that people write in, or 4 perspectives. So first person is when you're writing from your perspective and use I, me, I did this. And then second person is you go do this. And then there's third limited, which is where the reader only knows what the character knows. For example, Harry Potter is written in third limited, where if Harry doesn't have the information, then the reader doesn't have the information, but you might come to a conclusion before Harry does. And then there's third omniscient, where the reader gets insight into all the characters' minds, and it might even jump scenes where you go somewhere where the main character isn't even present and get information there. And so writing this has actually created sort of a meta layer on top of that, where the story itself is written in third omniscient. Well, the first book really is more, it doesn't matter. So third omniscient, so you're gaining insight into all the characters' thoughts, but then the oracle on top of that, and the gamer on top of that, which is my voice. So when something happens with the oracle that the reader needs to understand, what information is she giving, then I have sort of this meta voice that the characters aren't aware of, but the reader gets. And then there are situations where I just straight up talk to the oracle, where I'm like, really? This is what happened? This is what you want? And I find it really fun to be able to have that interaction, because she does become sort of this unfeeling, almighty force within this story, where, and I even, instead of calling it an action roll, I talk about it as the luck that the oracle gives the character. And they have to combine the oracle's luck with their own skills. And that's sort of how I let readers who aren't familiar with, action rolls understand how that is working together. So it somewhat gives her this agency that might not have otherwise really happened. And I think that part of it comes from this desire to bring in other people who might not necessarily know, not just Ironsworn, but tabletop games in general. And I make a big effort that whenever I'm talking to her or about her, that I'm very polite. Well, except the one time that I was like, girl, why?
Curse you, yeah.
I try not to cuss her out. That's actually also a bit of a feminist thing. I don't know if you guys have heard, there was a study, I don't recall how I heard about it, but there was a study they showed that people tended to cuss out bots when they had feminine sounding voices, like Siri, and they tended to cuss them out more than if they had masculine voices. And they're like, oh man, even robots are getting sexist discrimination. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I showed the oracle respect for two reasons. One, so she's not evil to me. And two, as the idea that people can't treat robots that way, because it will make them more likely to think that it's okay in just general. So, oh, we've got more comments from the same person. The Ironsworn community is very creative. For proof, Colin Kolecker made a venture bringing together several content creators for his Kickstarter. I'm gladly taking part of it along with rsek. It would be interesting discussion in which the possibility arises that the oracle is a diegetic persona, as opposed to an abstraction of chance that is outside the narrative frame. And my method is interesting because the oracle, being the narrator, could also be seen as the writer using a mask to artificially and blatantly interfere with the narrative, which could be a drawback for the reader. Separating the narrative from the oracle is quite elegant. Yeah, I definitely didn't want it to seem like the oracle was the player, but one of my big goals was to make the reader identify both with the story that's going on, and the characters and the events that they have to go through just like any normal novel, but I wanted the reader to also identify as a player would, where they're getting into this charged situation and they're like, oh, how do I get out of this? Is this going to get better? Is this going to get worse? And I thought it would be really fun for the reader in general if while they're going along, they're thinking to themselves, sorry, I got distracted by comments again. If while they're reading along, they're thinking to themselves, the author doesn't have as much control as they normally would. That the author is willing to let random chance derail her plans and derail what she wants most. The trick is, as the author, is having a lot of plans. Just sort of knowing, all right, if this happens, what am I going to do then? Okay, if that happens, what am I going to do then? But there have been instances where I literally just get up and walk away from my computer because I'm like, I can't do this role. If something bad happens, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. So it is a lot of fun to have this randomness introduced into something that normally you think of as someone having complete control over and then presenting it to you as as just sort of a finished, complete, here, I made this for you, as opposed to, like, this was made almost out of chance. It's just really fun.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it really does change the way that you think about a story and how it's crafted. And it's not, every piece isn't designed carefully by the author when the author is letting an outside force interact with their story so directly and so impactfully.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is really why Ironsworn lends itself so well to this, mash of media is that you have so much power over what the roles mean and how dramatic you want to make it. Like, people talk all the time about how a miss is really only as bad as you want it to be. And a strong hit doesn't have to fix all your problems, and you can always just free action, get ambushed by, marauders or something. So, having a lot of control and also giving up a lot of control is really exciting as a writer.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So like I have the philosophical position. It's like the real oracle was inside us all along, right? I'll get an action theme result or see a particular dice result and be like, oh, that means this, but it doesn't have to mean shit. Really, all the moves are telling you most of the time. Like, there's not, even pay the price doesn't actually require any kind of mechanical hit. Like, you can just opt out You could just not kill PCs.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
and that's
the
something.
person killing your PCs is you. but, but it's fascinating to me how well it creates the illusion that that isn't the case. That this is just sort of flowing naturally out of the ether, right? And there's
Credit to
like,
Sean for designing this system where
yeah,
we all can, have random rolls, and then we're like, oh, obviously this is what this means for this story right now, and it's
yeah,
just two random items out of a table that you roll the D100 against.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, I think one of the fascinating things about playing the game co-op is the amount of just like, oh no, I didn't see that. I saw X, Y, and Z instead in that Oracle result instead, and then you're like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's
Yes,
cool,
exactly.
right? And then arriving at some consensus about which idea is the coolest right now. And which is definitely a different style of gameplay and rewarding, but rewarding in different ways, I think. But it's yeah, there's like a really all like a strong hit miss or weak hit means is it went well, it went poorly, or a bit of both, right? And you know,
I think misses are like one of the best things in the system because
Mm-hmm.
they I always present them as moving the story along in new ways. It's just they're not great for the players. It's not that like a miss means you lose some arbitrary number of hit points or whatever. It's you can always, or it doesn't have to be this huge setback. It can be
Mm-hmm.
a progression in a different way, which I love the system for.
Yes, yes. I love that I can go back and forth as I want. That if I roll a miss and I'm like, okay, I know what this means, it's obvious, or if I roll a miss, I'm like, I have no idea. Ask the Oracle.
yeah, yeah.
And just again, taking away that choice paralysis is really wonderful. And that slipped my
So
mind.
so how much do you, Margaret? How much do you actually play for when you were writing these stories? Were you playing pretty much every day, or?
Yes, I I both love and hate to tell this story because it is funny but also intimidates people who want to do the same thing. Just gonna put this out there. You don't have to write like this. You don't have to play like this. But I picked up Ironsworn last May, and I have 3 books now from playing Ironsworn.
Stephen King style of writing, yeah.
I guess. So when it first started, I was playing pretty much every moment of free time I had, and it was just a hunger for it. It was fun. It was what I needed at the time, and for me, writing is very uplifting. I don't know. It soothes my depression. And I think I also really want to credit the main character, Proclus, and the way that I chose. Sorry. The way that I chose to work with his character as instead of being this really dire character, grim, dark, with a troubled past or some epic character flaw that they have to work through. The interesting thing with Proclus is he's very self-assured and very calm and he knows his limits, he knows what is right, he knows his morals, and the drama comes from that being tested constantly. And him being put through situations that he knows are beyond him, but his morals push him to want to get there and want to fix this, and how that really becomes a very humanizing struggle between wanting the best and feeling like it's out of your reach. And I think that's something that a lot of us have probably been going through these past 2 years, is feeling like we have had a lot of agency taken away from us. So writing a story like that did end up really drawing me in very viciously. So I did end up playing often 10 hours a day because, I'm a student. I'm a part-time student. The COVID took my job. So shout out to my wonderful fiance for feeding me. And so yeah, for quite a while. And then eventually when I was like, okay, I think I do want to turn this into a book, it went to some writing, some gaming, and then for the past month or so, I haven't gotten to play at all because I just wanted to get this book out.
Yeah, can't relate.
That happens. I mean, when I was trying to get parts of the bot done, I would go weeks without playing. And I mean, I try not to miss my, my weekly meeting with friends, but
yeah, same. Yeah, there's always my Stonetop game with my sister, my fiance, and my best friend, who incidentally they're the 3 people the book is dedicated to. But yeah, every Sunday, everything revolves around that, honestly. Like, I make sure that my homework is done, that I have nothing else I need to do, because I miss people. I really miss people.
So here's a question. Sort of like, one of the things that's striking to me about tabletop game culture today is sort of the rise of the AP as something to be consumed, so like in and of itself, right? Because I remember being in high school and just like, Critical Role didn't exist. It was the early 2000s, and getting people to give a shit about your weird weird elf game was kind of tricky, right?
Yes.
And but now it's like, I had friends at uni who were just like, oh, you know how to play Dungeons and Dragons? Like, can you teach me? Let's start a fucking game. And right, and also just people who like watch things like Critical Role and the like, that don't play the game but enjoy watching people play it.
Yes.
Anyways, so in the era of sort of like the various formats of actual play, whether that's a video, podcast, text, where it's a serialized, or it can be like a serialized writing. Is there a particular reason you went for the novel? It's just like you like the format better, or you like being able to like do some top-down work on it, where it's like, okay, I know how this is going to end up, so I'm going to change some of the language earlier on to foreshadow some shit, etc.
You can't see me shaking my head, but that is actually the opposite. So as far as playing to create something for other people to consume, because that's one of the things that I'm actually a little surprised of, that nobody's like, maybe this is imposter syndrome here, but I'm surprised nobody has just gone up to me shaking their finger like, this is just a play report. To which I would say, it sounds like you have something against play reports, but...
Yeah, there's a huge appetite for them. Like, people, I would post my own one for that I sort of on hiatus right now for the Star Trek playtest, and like, people read that shit, which to me again is sort of surreal, coming from the age of coming from getting started in gaming in the early 2000s.
Yes.
So,
For
right,
sure.
but now I occasionally get people sending me messages, very very occasionally. Mind, it's not a big audience that Wandering Star has, but saying, "Oh, I'll hope you'll pick up your AP again. I've been rereading it, and it's quite good. Right?" Which is,
It's amazing.
yeah,
It's wild to think that this is interesting to other people. But the reason very easy reason I went for novel format as opposed to any other format was 100% just I was a novelist beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And I have already created really honed my skills for developing characters in a way that make other people care about them, not just for me to be like, okay, now I know more about my character, so I know more about what they're going to do next in the story. My whole goal is to draw other people into the story. So it is a balance, because you can't write for, well, you can, but I advise people not to write for anyone other than themselves, because it's just not worth it to constantly feel like you have to make someone else happy no matter what you want to do with your story, because in the end you're the one that's spending the most time on it. And if you write what you like, then you'll always have at least one fan. So creating...
It's helpful to view like the process itself as valuable as well. Like,
For sure.
it's just fun to write stuff, not necessarily to have people read it,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
those are two different things. But because I have plenty creative writing, which I figure is like, I guess to use another fine art and design metaphor, is like a sketchbook. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's you working some shit out, or practicing, or something to see if it works, and maybe you use it and maybe you don't. But
Or
one,
just
yeah,
getting
doing
the
it.
idea down.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just getting an idea down and it only makes sense a year on.
Yes. But to go a little further into the question about top down, like knowing where the story is going, absolutely not. I have no idea.
That's fair.
I'll try to keep any spoilers out, in anything too heavy but given that most people here, well, anyway, with the Unspoken Vow, the way I went into that as just playing and not knowing where the roles are going to take me, I knew that I wanted to do a delve in a cave, and I knew I wanted them to find something like some sort of corruptive magic. But I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with that. So I just went in and started seeing what the Oracle threw at me. I actually expected that... I have this idea from a different story I created of magic having a physical form that's like a crystallization.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure that's a fairly common
Yeah.
trope. But I was like, okay, we'll have the characters find some sort of crystallized magic that's seeping in and corrupting or something like that.
Cave of the Mana Crystals. I'm pretty sure I played that RPG.
And so I get in there and I don't get anything from the Oracle that kind of implies that I'm finding anything in the cave that is a physical feature of the cave. I keep finding creatures. And that took me in a completely different direction, and I ended up going with necromancers in the caves.
Yeah.
And then I made some arbitrary decisions that ended up just being good decisions.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point with the final battle might have a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina kind of feel, because I knew one of the things I wanted to do with the final battle. I'm like, I can definitely beat up my character enough to make this interesting. But hopefully the reader will be like, oh yeah, you earned that. That wasn't out of nowhere. But I remember being a little bit like seriously anxious going into that final boss battle, being like, I don't know what the roles are going to give me. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I'm actually nervous. So I don't know how the story is going to end. I go in with very vague ideas of like, I know I want a delve that is this theme, or I know I want to travel to this place and it's gonna happen like this. But as far as all the details of getting there and where the story goes, it is a wonderful surprise to find out just what can be waiting for me. Like all these characters that I feel like I don't even know where they came from. And how they just start acting the way that they do, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is fun. But I also know it's a little bit of my desire to take things way too far. For one thing, I asked the Oracle, like, okay, what is this character's disposition towards me? And the Oracle's like, yeah, they're unfriendly. And I'm like, oh, so you mean they're sadistic? All right, I can work with that. Poor Oracle's like, no, they don't like you. Not that they want to kill you. They want to kill me. Interesting.
But that's playing a character. That's role playing. Is like, in a way, you pretend your character has these traits, these flaws, where someone's unfriendly. Why are they unfriendly to me? They must not. They must be out for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of the Oracle is really just like the various random tables in in any game, but in Ironsworn in particular, especially with its more interpretive oracles like action theme. It kind of leverages the human tendency towards pareidolia, which is, when people's tendency to see the face of Christ on a piece of burnt toast,
Yes.
right? Like we're wired to look for patterns, and that's useful in many different ways. It's how we deal with, language and numeracy and everything that's developed out of those. But it can do a lot. It can do a fair number of false positives, but it sort of like tricks us into using that and into assembling something coherent out of really what's just random noise, right?
Yes.
But
I have a
which
really
I think is
good example of that. I want you to finish.
yeah, which I think is quite interesting, and in a way, like you're hopefully tending to interpret stuff in a way that's satisfying to you. I'm not
For
sure that
sure.
all, but like of course I'm going to interpret stuff in a way that's actually interesting to me because I'm biased towards results that are interesting to me, and that's the tough stuff I tend to think of.
Well, see, that's the thing, is a lot of people are probably going to agree with you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's sort of weird just because like one of the things that struck me about Starforged getting integrated like session moves for its various safety tools was just like giving people permission to not fucking murder their character, which is a not infrequent query that shows up on the Reddit and the Discord, and killing your PC, being absolutely vicious with your PC is 100% fine if that's what you want to do. But presumably people bring up that as a complaint when it isn't.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I use just taking damage as I I default to that a little too much just because I like the drama of it. Adding a little bit of blood and gore always makes me go, yes, drama. But
that's the storytelling part, right? And if that's drama for you, then that's what's intriguing to you. That's what you should do.
yes.
Yeah.
Although I do have a comment pretty much in I do add these comments while I'm writing where it's like the writer mentioning, like talking to the Oracle. They are literally me talking to myself while I'm writing it. I wonder if I can find it. Oh, it's way up here. While I'm searching for this, I'm going to tell you what you reminded me of, rsek, was interpreting it the way that that you want to. For one of the vows in Unspoken Vow, I was like, okay, this little girl wants a gift from Proclus. The main character's name is Proclus. What does she want? So I just asked for action and theme, and it was land, withdraw. And I was like, she wants a gift, land, withdraw? What do I do with that? Okay, what withdraws from the land that is something
Stuff
you
you
would
dig up.
want? Huh?
Stuff you dig up.
Yeah, that's
hole.
a good one. I thought later, like, why didn't she want like a plant or something? But what I went with was she wanted shoes, because you wear shoes to keep your feet away from the land.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty utilitarian. There's been about like, as long as it gets you someplace interesting, it's probably fine, right? But
Where was that comment? Damn. I don't think I can find it, but it was something along the line of, oh, nope, forget it. Taking the story in just very drastic ways of wherever you really want to go with it. I kept rolling matches, strong hit matches for Forge Bonds, and I'm like, they kiss. That's where I want to go with this.
At least someone's rolling strong hit matches on Forge Bonds.
Oh no! Yeah. And that's one of the weird things about that mechanic is sometimes it's like this character, like they've been spending all this time together. It's weird that they didn't forge a bond, but I rolled a miss. Better make a reason for that.
Yeah, and it's not often like my strategy is to use. The reason is just something exterior, because sometimes stuff doesn't work out because that's how it plays out, right? Which I guess is also just real world relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
right, and like they can't engage emotionally for whatever reason.
Yep. That's what I was going to pretty much say is they're just unavailable for their own reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whether it be like, I have a character who sort of has it in her head that no one would want to be her friend or hang out with her. So that's why she kind of rejected forging a bond, was just this idea of, you're just being nice to me. And
yeah,
then a different situation, I just decided to have the character doing something else while everyone else was saying goodbye. So she just wasn't there to forge a
yeah.
bond.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Oh man, actually, like that's one thing. Thinking about some of the stuff you were saying earlier around not sort of being perma spoilered by knowing the ending ahead of time is it is interesting. But one of the most interesting things I find is just like it enhances the sort of the process and maybe the end result sometimes of stuff that happens in the game to leave blank spaces, because often before you actually get in there and like handle the game world as a character and even like play this character long enough to figure out what their fucking deal is, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to don't know at first, right?
Yeah.
And just sort of like having enough to get moving in media res, and maybe you make a reference to something off screen that isn't explained but at least like has a cool name, and you're good to go. And then you decide something concrete about it when it comes up later.
Yes.
And like doing that, like, and having a certain amount of like restraint around like, okay, I'm getting some analysis paralysis around the amount of detail I need in this particular scene for this particular combat to play out, so let's just focus on what the character is very concretely aware of, right?
Yes. And
And I don't do that all the time. Like I don't really, I tend to play in what is sometimes called director stance in the tabletop discourse, where it's like I'm often sort of standing back for the character, and I want to highlight a particular flaw, so stuff will go in this direction and things like that. And so often there's plenty of stuff off screen happening anyways that I am aware of, but it's not stuff close enough to the PC where I'm actually having to decide details about it.
yeah. One of the really useful tricks that probably people either do consciously or do subconsciously is just to put a lot of references and hooks and things that you could go back to. Just set up as many as you can as you're going along, and if you don't use them, oh, it was just good flavor.
Yeah, and I think so. Circling back to the that person just not being there, that could be an excellent hook down the line. And just sometimes you're not her fucking dad. You don't have to know where she is all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe she just wasn't there, and it's no big deal. But maybe she wasn't there for a reason, and and yeah, like leaving yourself mystery to solve, I think, is sort of part of what that does too. And sometimes the mystery you're solving is what your character's fucking problem is. But
I don't know. This is something that was sort of a Twitter meme a few months back, but the idea that writers are very mean to one another, which is very true. It's very true, and it's slowly getting better. But one of the things that always bothered me was the saying, and it's attributed to Pixar, was the saying of, you wrote a manuscript, congratulations, now you know what your story is about, rewrite it. And to me, that's like, oh, ow, that's harsh. Saying, okay, throw it away and rewrite it. I would, I disagree with that because of those hooks that we were talking about. That once you write your manuscript and you've set up all these things within the story, now you see which connections you took. That is what gives you your theme of the story. So you've written your manuscript, congratulations. Now you see your themes, go back and strengthen those themes and edit out anything that doesn't match the theme, anything that contradicts your theme.
Yeah.
That's how I got to the title Unspoken Vow, was I realized there are multiple instances in this story where Proclus doesn't vow to someone present. He makes a vow for someone or because of someone, but he doesn't say it to them. And
Yeah.
yeah, it became the theme.
And depending on your world, that can be the vow magic, right? Like, it's, to me, vows are I always play them as chaos magic, where it works because we believe they work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the power of intention, to get all flaky about it. but yeah, and I think like there's a, it's it's definitely a trope for people to like silently promise themselves that X will or won't happen or something like that, or like that bit in Gone with the Wind, where it's like, with God as my witness, I'll never be hungry again. Right? And I forget where I was going with that. I may not have been going anywhere.
Yeah.
So this segues into a question I wanted to ask, and it might be too spoilery, so you can shoot me down, but what is Proclus's either character vow or inciting vow?
Like his background vow, or what gets the story
Yeah.
going?
Either one, whatever's more interesting, really.
Yeah, actually, this is not too spoilery because it is mentioned very early on. He, as a child, almost drowned, and a avatar of the moon saved him and took him back to dry land. And he was, the way it was described was he was too young to really have words of gratitude, to be able to really tell this celestial being, you saved my life and thank you. And she gives him a little iron pendant. In my mind, I joke that it's his like lifesaver candy because it's sort of the size and shape of a lifesaver, just made of iron. And the narrative reads something along the line of, in that moment, the vow was struck. But just this idea that he is bonded with the moon. And his starting assets are bind, so he binds with the moon, and Slayer, and the punchy one.
Brawler?
Brawler, yes. Which is why, again, the two of you can't see the stream, but I'll show it to people who can. I'm wearing my Keep Punching Till It Works shirt. Credit to Drawfee. Unfortunately, the shirt is no longer available for purchase, but go subscribe to Drawfee because they're fun. So yes, the big part of his personality and his story is that he has this very dangerous magic that is part of him. And it is a little spoilery to give you the reason of why it's so dangerous, but it's kind of a funny and cute reason that's like, really? This is what the celestial beings are doing? But his being able to bind to the moon, I'm sure I'm not the first person to do this. Honestly, I jumped into this without knowing anything about the fandom or the community, but Proclus is an animorph, so when he binds, instead of wearing a pelt, he just becomes an animal.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
funny. I mean, originality is sort of a weird and sort of overrated thing, or maybe a widely misunderstood thing. I think
Well, and it
a lot of
also,
them we're just reading what already exists, or
it's a
but
fun idea.
yeah, no, it's cool. Like, why wouldn't you want to turn into a fucking wolf? Like,
Yeah. And
that's
also,
so.
I was a huge Animorphs fan as a kid.
Yeah,
Like, absolutely. I
Yeah.
would go through those books so fast. So,
but yeah, like it even suggests like in the original in the Ironsworn rulebook, I think it actually straight up says, yeah, if you want to make acids a bit more high magic, for example, bind, and using it for like full on shape shifting, go for it. Like, but because it can work that way, and the wording is often sparse enough that you have a fair bit of wiggle room with acid cards as well.
for sure. And I also made up quite a few of my own rules that make bind a little more strict, I guess.
Mhm.
So he doesn't necessarily have control over it. That if he doesn't have the power initiated, the moon just gives him the power, whether he wants it or not. And so, if he doesn't have, the bind active or, like in the pendant ready to be used, if the moon is out during night or astronomical twilight, because yes, I do keep track of the moon phases and the day, the time of year, plus the latitude, because I'm a fucking nerd that has to use her astronomy minor for something. So the rule is he has to roll bind, which means, he could get that strong hit, he could get that weak hit and suffer -2 spirit, or he could get that miss and something could go really wrong. And and I do really like the what is it called? The magical backfire. The mystic
backlash table.
table. Thank you. Magic backfire. That's
I mean, it's basically just like you plugged it into Taurus, but right, like semantically roughly the same thing. I knew, but
but yes.
the only reason I remember the exact names of a lot of these things is just it's just engraved into my flesh at this point. But I'm from doing the data entry and implementing it in various projects.
So, but yeah, I like the mystic backlash table because I have the chance to make it go very, very wrong.
Yeah.
So,
well, yes. I reckon it makes sense. It just makes perfect sense to keep track of the main phase, regardless, just because it's clearly a big deal to the character, right?
Although I'm going to admit, it took me a while to realize how detailed I needed to get with that. I originally just had a reference for myself of, hey, don't forget that a gibbous moon rises at this time and sets at that time. And then I realized, oh, but time of year is going to matter. And then I just allowed it. I allowed it to get so complicated to the point that I was keeping track of like the time of day sometimes. I was like, how much time do they have before the sun goes down? But
Yeah.
And that can really matter depending on your world or your characters. So, if you're playing with if you're one of your truths is that like night is terrifying, right? There's that one truth that's like we don't go out at night is I think is.
I have that truth.
Yeah, it can really matter.
I'm gonna just toot my own horn here, but I love the opening line of this book. Just the first line reads, "Fire keeps the night crawlers away." It's like so much intrigue. I am really happy with this book, but the kitty roaring against the moon is that background vow of he binds with the moon and he can turn into a panther, which went really well with the Slayer since the icon is the big cat roaring. The icons are copyrighted, so I had to make my own, and
well, it depends on which ones. I mean, you can sort of get a lot of the icons, not all of them, but I would say like 80% of them are taken from game icons.
I tried to find them there.
Yeah, I have a list that I built at one point, just like, here's the ones that have like an exact match, an exact or close to exact match. Here's the one where it's like reasonable facsimile.
Yeah.
I
could not find the Slayer one.
Slayer is that like the one that's like a tooth on a necklace or some shit like that?
No, it's the big cat roaring.
I'm not. Yeah, don't mind me. I'm
Yeah, I just ended up drawing my own and being really happy with the way they came out. I drew the one for Brawler, and the Slayer one and the companion are made by Sean himself. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the companion silhouettes. Yeah, and I can kind of understand why, because if the more like literal and representational the game icons get, some of them get it's kind of a vibe that doesn't quite mesh with the tone.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, I ended up not using the one I created for Brawler, and it's so pretty. I worked so hard. Do you have any idea? Well, rsek, you know how hard it is to draw hands. I might have it here. I'll just show the world. I have so many sketches of my characters and situations. Oh, I did the Oracle. I thought I might want an icon for the Oracle.
Oh, cool.
So it's sort of like an
God damn it, I didn't realize you can't see it.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Huh? Okay. Here's the Brawler fist I made. Yay! It's so pretty. But yeah,
It
this
doesn't.
is.
I don't actually. I'm not actually getting video from you.
I
I
know
have.
it. It's
Is it like
because
happening or?
well, what's going on is that my Twitch streaming
Oh, it gets
has
piped. Yeah.
it has control of my camera, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to figure out how to fix that. So if you're watching the Twitch stream or the VOD, you can see videos of me and Xeno, and of course you're just a bizarre little furry creature with flower eyes. Tell us about that.
Oh, that's an illustration done by Louis Wayne, who was late 19th century, uh, like Victorian era illustrator. She was known largely for his various cartoons of cats, but also did some stuff with more psychedelic vibes. And I just continue to use that because I think it's fun.
It is. I like it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm almost certainly not the only person using it online. But I have been using it as an avatar for a bit. But
It's very distinctive.
yeah,
It makes for a good avatar because a lot of when they're really small, you look at it and go, I'm not sure what that is.
yeah.
It reads from small.
Proper. Yeah, I'll drop a Wikipedia link in the Discord.
I will get that for the chat. Well, I will get that very poorly for the chat. There we go. Oh, no, not that one.
But yeah, I guess the problem with using my own work as an avatar is it tends to like. I don't think I'd be able to like stop touching it. Like, right?
Oh,
Like,
I feel that in such a personal way. There's definitely a point where you have to say enough and just walk away. One of the really painful things I had to do right at the end, I found out that I was, from the way I was saving the backups, I was actually losing some information because I'm a technology idiot. And I found out that the rewrite I had done, the final polished rewrite of the final battle, had gotten lost.
oh, brutal.
And I couldn't remember what I did at all. I couldn't remember how much I had added or where I had polished. So I was like, well, the ending was good before. I guess I'm just going to put it out there because, you know, no one's going to know except now that I told everyone. Well, it sounds like the conversation is kind of dwindling down. Is there anything else the two of you wanted to bring up?
I don't have anything else. You answered all my questions expertly.
Oh. Anything chat wants to ask? While chat might be typing a question or two, anything you'd like to plug?
Oh, yeah, the main thing, like, I guess I could plug my Twitter account. I mean, I don't actually post a lot there. Mainly, I just retweet shit when there's Starforge related announcements. but uh, so I guess people could read my text-based actual play that I do with an internet friend of mine. That is a Starforged actual play set in a version of the Forge that's sort of rife with like various religious and occult conspiracies.
Did you drop that in the Discord as well?
Yeah. And so I guess the starting premise could be badly paraphrased as a retired war criminal and the space pope in disguise accidentally go on a road trip. But
What? Whoops.
yeah. But yeah, no, the space folk gone walkabout because their clandestine lover died, and they're solving a mystery about what the fuck happened there, while also experiencing visions on account of being a seer. And that frames that I'm not sure if it remains in the game at this point, actually, if the Triumvirate is in the current iteration of the Starforged truths, but basically sets up the Triumvirate as a kind of growing theocratic empire. So it's like there's stuff that's less frontier vibes than the Forge, but we're not there. That's not the setting we're working in.
It sounds really cool. You had me at Space Pope.
Yeah, no, non-binary twink space pope. I'll add that. But,
even
I forgot about
better.
that part of it.
What about you, Xeno? Anything you'd like to plug?
Not really. Ironsworn Discord, the Oracle bot. Keep playing weird elf games.
Spay and neuter your pets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my novel, Ironsworn, The Unspoken Vow, is available on itch.io, and it is based on the role-playing game Ironsworn by Sean Tompkin, and you can get Ironsworn at ironswornrpg.com.
100% free.
Yes. The free download at Drive-Thru RPG. The website will send you there as well. And Ironsworn, The Unspoken Vow is also free. Pay what you want. As far as anything else, the map for the novel was made by Ben Hooley. You can find his work, I believe, at benhooleyuk. You can see it in the book and on the page. The Ironsworn Unspoken Vow page has all the credits for everything that I used in the book, and just big thank you. Thank you, Xeno. Thank you, rsek, for giving me this wonderful tool that helped me write a really fun book. And I hope all of you enjoy it very much. I hope you check it out and let me know what you think. I'm excited.
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah. I'm excited to keep writing the series. Okay.
Did the audience turn up any questions?
They did not. They turned up some cheers though. Oh, thank you, Matt. benhooleyartist.co.uk. Matt is my unofficial moderator. Okay, well, again, thank you so much for joining me. Maybe we can chat again another time. This has been a lot of fun.
This was great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.